Tonight on West Dakota Fox News at 9. 2 rings in 1 week. We'll show you Carson Wentz's big news. Plus, the signs of seasonal disorder and how it could be affecting you. But first, we're days away from another possible government shutdown. Will this time be any different?
This is West Dakota Fox News at 9 with Molly Martinez and meteorologist Henry Blakes. Your first news of the night starts right now on West Dakota Fox News at 9.
Good evening, I'm Molly Martinez. History could be repeating itself in the nation's capital, with lawmakers facing another government shutdown. Fox News correspondent Ellison Barber is in Washington with the countdown.
The clock is ticking towards another federal shutdown. The government is set to run out of money on Thursday. Lawmakers are working on a budget deal to try and keep the lights on.
The only reason we do not have a full budget agreement is because Democrats continue to hold funding for our government hostage on an unrelated issue.
House Republicans are moving ahead with a spending bill that would fund the government through March 23rd, as well as fund the military for a year. The measure is expected to face opposition in the Senate, where Democrats hold a bit more power than their colleagues in the House and are looking to spend more money on domestic programs.
Just as our men and women in uniform deserve the resources they need to keep our country safe, so do our veterans waiting for better health care.
A budget impasse forced the government to close for 3 days last month. Lawmakers say that won't happen this time around, but many of the disagreements that led to the January shutdown haven't been resolved. On Sunday, Democratic Senator Dick Durbin said a DACA deal was unlikely before the budget deadline. By Monday morning, immigration talks appeared to stall, with the White House rejecting the latest bipartisan immigration proposal.
Also in Washington, Representative Kevin Cramer has his first in-party challenger for his U.S. House seat. Tiffany Abendroth announcing her candidacy today. Abendroth is a fifth-generation farmer's daughter from Cummings, North Dakota. She's also a former staff sergeant in the Marine Corps. She served as an intelligence analyst in Japan, Iraq, and the United States. A quote from Abendroth's bio sent to West Dakota Fox says, quote, "While Representative Cramer has done his best, I believe that it is time for a fresh perspective. I believe in the importance of working across party lines to further the agenda of my constituents." Abendroth is expected to announce her official run next week. Time now is 9:02. Let's take our first check on weather with meteorologist Henry Blake.
I'll have the complete forecast as well as some totals coming up later on in the newscast.
Thank you, Henry.
You're welcome.
Police in Minnesota arrest a man accused of attacking a priest in Anamoose. The incident happened on January 30th. Police say 42-year-old Chad Lagar faces charges of attempted murder, aggravated assault, and burglary. The Diocese of Fargo confirmed that Father Joseph Wapensky was attacked in St. Xavier Church. The motive is still unclear. And another attack arrest, a 34-year-old man has been charged after assaulting a 3 affiliated tribes police officer. According to the affidavit, Officer Cody Smith went to check on William Pitts after his car went into a ditch. During the welfare check, Smith said he could smell alcohol on the driver. As the officer was placing Pitts into his patrol car, he became argumentative and told Smith that he couldn't arrest him because he was white. Pitts then attacked the officer, punching him and kneeing him in the ribs. Smith was treated for injuries, and Pitts was charged with assaulting a federal officer. Oftentimes, when officers pull someone over, the situation can escalate quickly. As we just heard from our last story, some choose to fight, others choose flight. Law enforcement agencies in the state have seen an uptick in police chases. Daniela Hurtado has more.
Pursuits don't happen often, but when they do, officers and deputies have to be quick on their feet with how they're going to proceed. State law says agencies are allowed to pursue, but have to do it with safety in mind.
You may think it's funny, you may think it's a joke to flee from the police, but you're endangering people's lives out there by engaging in that behavior, and that's not a joke.
Doors opening, vehicles coming to a stop, vehicles opening, the doors opening, driver's seat.
Lieben says last year the Burleigh County Sheriff's Office had 25 pursuits, and Bismarck police say they've had more than 100, almost doubling since the year before.
We've had a fairly significant increase, and I know that there's been some frustration over the officers that a lot of people are, it seems like now it's more common where people are fleeing.
Both departments say officers and deputies have to assure the benefit is worth the risk. We reached out to the Mandan Police Department for an interview. They said they did not want to be a part of this story. They did provide us with a copy of their pursuit policy, which says they can pursue vehicles as long as they keep the safety of the community in mind. It also says pursuits should be limited to 3 vehicles, including a supervisor, but that can change depending on the circumstances.
A New York City woman who suffered a serious arm injury while protesting the Dakota Access Oil Pipeline in North Dakota is suing the federal government to obtain evidence. Sophia Wolanski wants that evidence analyzed by a forensic scientist. That evidence includes clothing she was wearing during the explosion and shrapnel from the scene. Protesters say the explosion was caused by a police grenade. Police say it was a rigged propane canister. Wolanski was forced to undergo several surgeries for the extensive damage to her arm. Well, rig counts in the state were up last month. That's compared to December and the year before that. The last S&P Global Platts report says there were 50 rigs operating in our state in January. That's up 2 from December and up 14 from last year. Texas has the most rigs in operation by far with 508 in January, followed by Oklahoma at 128. Meantime, tracks are now clear after 19 cars from a BNSF train carrying soybeans went off the rail early Monday morning. It happened just northwest of Carlsruhe. 6 of those train cars derailed. A BNSF spokesperson says there were no injuries. It is still unclear what caused that crash. Residents of Fox Island are going to have to wait a little longer for their flood protection plan. In Burleigh County, commissioners are reviewing the final easement. The Fox Island project is designed to raise some roads by a foot. It will also complete a chain of dikes and levees to protect South Bismarck. But some homeowners aren't sold on the plan, and they're asking for a different one. In education news, out of the 254 students in the Bismarck School English Learner Program, 70 are from Puerto Rico. Some of those students are Puerto Rican and relocated to North Dakota after Hurricane Maria struck their island. BPS English Language Learner Coordinator says a good portion of them have already moved back home or are planning to leave soon.
They were displaced students, so they had gone some time without school, and then they hadn't planned on coming here, and so it was more of quite a few students trying to figure out where they can live, what they can do, how parents find jobs, and that got to be a real struggle.
16 families in total came to Bismarck after Hurricane Maria. In health news, now that the days are short and sunlight is sparse, seasonal affective disorder has set in for many. Symptoms of SAD include feeling of being alone. The disorder is dependent on the light and dark cycle people experience over the winter months, but there are ways to deal with it.
Eating good, sleeping pattern that's stable, exercising regularly, going out when it's sunny outside in the winter is just as effective. I would say that your vitamin D intake is very important. It affects the overall brain functioning and mental health.
Thomas says staying active is very important for releasing endorphins, which can overcome SAD symptoms. Also on the health front, First Lady Catherine Helgas Burgum is back in Bismarck tonight to talk addiction. About 80 people came to hear how the First Lady and Governor are trying to combat the opioid crisis in North Dakota. Burgum says she wants to reduce the stigma around addiction, and that starts with changing how people see it.
There's one thing I want people to know, it's that this is a disease. It's a chronic brain disease, and it is not a moral failing or a character flaw. And there should be no shame and stigma related to having the disease of addiction.
The CDC reported that 81 people in North Dakota died from overdose between June 2016 and June 2017. Well, the last few days have been a whirlwind for Bismarck native Carson Wentz. Sunday, his team, the Philadelphia Eagles, won the Super Bowl, and now he's engaged. In a post on Twitter, the 25-year-old posted, "She said yes. Now Maddie and I are both getting a ring." Speaking of sports, collecting baseball, football, hockey, and basketball cards seems like a hobby of yesteryear, but collecting is making a serious comeback. Maddie Jelseth explains. Well, it was another bumpy day on Wall Street. Yesterday, the Dow fell over 1,000 points despite a partial rebound by closing bell. Doug Luzader has more from Washington, where the White House has been keeping a close eye on the numbers.
A lot of turbulence in overseas markets overnight following the big sell-off yesterday, where the downward arrows got quite a workout on Wall Street. If today is anything like yesterday, we are all in for a wild ride. The Dow fell more than 4.5%, but it was the largest point drop ever, wiping out all gains for the year so far, a loss so big it didn't quite fit on the board.
Once it happens, everybody panics. It's a herd.
Yeah.
And that's what happened yesterday, and I expect the herd to keep running for a while.
It was a reset of sorts because of what most would consider good news. Wages are going up, stocks have been on a tear, but there are fears that everything is overheating, which can lead to inflation, and that the Federal Reserve will raise interest rates to try to rein it all in. All of this on a day when a new Fed chair, Jerome Powell, was sworn in, and President Trump was talking up the economy.
Where do you see GDP over the next year or two? Where do you see what happens to our country? Because people can feel it.
All of this underscoring the risks of taking credit when the markets go up.
Someone should tell Trump to stop talking about the markets. It's not a good thing to be touting the market going up because they always correct. I mean, from a political standpoint, he should stick to the economy, which obviously is getting better.
And in a tumultuous market, the best advice may be to hold steady.
My advice is to take a deep breath and don't make the mistake of doing something because it's usually going to be wrong.
A 6.4 magnitude earthquake rattles Taiwan. It happened earlier today. The epicenter was in Hualien County. At least 2 people were killed and hundreds more injured in the quake. Well, drone video shows the aftermath of a massive highway pileup in Missouri. The aerial footage shot by the Conway Volunteer Fire Department has already raked in more than 2 million views online. Authorities say between 50 and 100 cars were involved in Sunday's wreck. It happened along Interstate 44. 1 woman died and 11 more were injured in the crash. And Houston, there was no problem with today's SpaceX launch in Florida. The Falcon Heavy taking off on its first flight from Kennedy Space Center. It's the most powerful rocket in use today, featuring 3 boosters and 27 engines. And the Tide Pod Challenge is inspiring some new legislation. 2 New York lawmakers want the state to mandate child-resistant packaging on the products. They also want warning labels and uniform colors for the laundry detergent pods. And some new information tonight about a 2016 Uber data breach. The company says 2 people behind the breach were found in Canada and Florida. About 25 million users affected in the breach are in the U.S., and of those people, 4.1 million were drivers. Time now for the moment you've all been waiting for. Meteorologist Henry Blakes.
Yeah, that's if you like snow.
A Bismarck family is earning their way to internet stardom, one loyal viewer at a time. I'm talking about the McMurtys. This summer, they decided to chronicle their daily lives, and so far, it's been a huge hit.
Hey, we're back. Meet the McMurtys. A couple years ago, they bought the coffee shop inside the Bismarck Library. They say their hope is to pass it on to Christian, their teenage son with Down syndrome.
We did that for our son because we want him to be able to have employment. And so we really believe in the purpose of all people to find work and feel valued.
But the McMurtys are so much more than coffee shop owners. And rather than telling us, they're showing us.
When we got the diagnosis that Christian had Down syndrome, what would have been really great? And it would have been really great to see a family that had a kid with Down syndrome who looked a lot like us.
You love them?
1980s, I love it. Actually,
This summer, they started the Gifted Bean blog, chronicling their highs, lows, and everything in between.
We're not really sure what's happening with that.
just punched my head!
That'd be a domestic.
Mom!
There's a lot to love in life every day, and if we don't take time to enjoy some of the wild and woolies that come about, I think it makes life uninteresting.
And so their vlog was born.
I saw in one of the episodes, it was your 16th birthday.
Yep.
I
kissed it.
With every new installment, they're growing their following, raking in tens of thousands of viewers.
To follow their vlog, you can go to their YouTube page or Facebook page. Just search The Gifted Bean. Well, air rescue crews with the Contra Costa County Sheriff's Office were conducting a training drill from last week. And from the air, they spotted this cow who got his head stuck inside of a tree trunk. They were able to successfully free him. Henry, our very hilarious PA Jackson just said that cow was stumped.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened. Poor thing. Glad they were able to get it out, though. Hey, we're talking about the cold weather for tomorrow and pretty much the rest of the week, folks. We'll be starting out our Wednesday morning below 0. Just be sure to dress in layers like we've been doing for the past several weeks. You know the drill. Highs in the teens for tomorrow. Wind out of the south, mostly 5 to 10. Chances of snow, yes, going to continue, especially for the southwest.
Telling you, Henry, sorry, you're killing me. Be nicer to us next week.
I'll try.
We'll see you tomorrow.